Hi, I'm Andrea Lapomi, and this is video number 6 in Ethics Mini Roles and Boundaries, which focuses on NCB TMB Standard 5. You can go to confidentmassage.com to find the downloadable copy of the text that corresponds with this video series and to find quiz instructions and payment instructions. Massage therapists on drugs. In his or her professional role, the certificant or applicant for certification shall refrain from practicing under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or any illegal substances, with the exception of a prescribed dosage of prescription medication which does not impair the certificant. And that is a quote from the NCB TMB Standards of Practice. To the untrained observer, our job looks pretty easy. We dispense oil or lotion and rub it all over our client's skin, our only tools usually being the ones attached to the distal ends of our forearms. People often assume we spend those 60-plus minutes checked out, composing Whole Foods shopping lists and epic poetry within our completely zenned out noggins. But we know the real deal. Most of us do our best work when we're present and in the moment. In the Massage Priority Toolbox, our ability to concentrate on our work should be right up there with hand soap and clean linens. As was the case with our chapter on sexual activity, I honestly don't know what else I can add to this one without gilding the lily. Of course, we ought to minimize distractions in the treatment room so that we can focus on serving our clients. This includes minimizing distractions that occur within our own heads. Worst case, if something happens during a session that leads a client to contact law enforcement, for example, accusations of a sexual nature, missing valuables, injury, etc., and you are found to have been using an illegal substance or abusing a legal one while working on clients, this does not help your position in the least. Please save any legal recreational substance use for appropriate times when you're off the clock and plan accordingly if you have to go to work the next day. So again, touching back on what we talked about in previous chapters, if there ever is any sort of accusation made against you, even if it's a false accusation by a client or a friend or associate of a client, you want to make sure that all of your ducks are in a row so you're not going to be in an even more defensive position when you are presenting your side of the story. So obviously, any sort of drug use that would be mind-altering or would impact your reaction time or your decision-making abilities, using those when you're working on clients is probably not the best idea. So that's about all I'm going to say about massage therapists on drugs. It's best to just avoid them when you are working or going to be engaging in client contact. Now this chapter, let's see how much time I have. This chapter is an interesting one and I actually have a lot to say about it. Abusive clients. In his or her professional role, the certificant or applicant for certification shall have the right to refuse and or terminate the service to a client who is abusive or under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or any illegal substance. And that is quoting the NCB TMB Standards of Practice. Definition of abuse: to treat in a harmful, injurious, or offensive way. That's from dictionary.com. Like most of us, I have very little patience for abusive behavior and the people who engage in it. This is true when I'm the target, and it's even truer when someone I care about is caught in a bully's crosshairs. And this means you too. I care about you. When a client books an appointment with you, they are employing your awesome massage therapy skills to aid them in reaching a deeper state of relaxation, pain relief, or physical enjoyment. Their booking does not include a voucher that states, "Good for 1 free hour of getting away with treating a person who's trying to help like crap." I don't care if the offender is drunk, high, tired, or if they just had a bad day. If someone is being emotionally, mentally, or physically abusive toward you, you do not have to tolerate it, nor should you. We massage therapists have the right to work in a safe environment, free of fear and intimidation, and we have the right to advocate for our own well-being. When we are subjected to abusive behavior, our health suffers. Abuse can lead to the development of stress, anxiety, and depression. In addition to these effects that abuse can have on us personally, when we aren't in prime physical, mental, and emotional condition, we aren't as readily able to care for others who depend on us, family members, friends, and clients. We owe it to ourselves and to those most important to us to stick up for ourselves when someone attempts to serve us a hot, steaming plate of disrespect smothered in a buttery intimidation sauce. Specifically, what does abuse in the treatment room look like? We could go hog wild with examples here, but to name a few, a client grabs your hand and places it on their genitalia. I would also add if the client just grabs your hand, also uncalled for. A client actually slaps or kicks at you while you're massaging them. And I know that sounds kind of humorous, and I can see why it would, but there was actually one instance where I was working at a resort spa, and I actually had a client half jokingly make a comment like, "Oh, if you go too deep, I'll just kick you." And that was years ago, and it sticks with me because inappropriate. I don't care. This happened to be a male client, but male or female, doesn't matter. Highly inappropriate, highly. And yeah, the fact that I still remember it to this day and it happened years ago is telling. A client uses insulting language to demean you as a professional or a person. A client threatens to report you to the authorities when you've done nothing wrong. That's actually, I haven't actually had that happen to me, but I've heard of situations where that's happened, and yeah, that's a method of control and intimidation. A client threatens to complain about your job performance to your manager if you refuse to accommodate their unreasonable request. And that could be a flat out threat to do that, or it could be a client could hint around that. Excuse me. Making videos all day. My throat is a little dry. A client blames you for a pre-existing condition that has absolutely nothing to do with the massage they received from you. And this actually, I do actually have some personal experience with this. Several years ago, I had a client at the resort spa who, like probably 20% of all massage clients came in with a headache, and he just expressed that he had a headache. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. He had a headache. So he definitely had tension in his neck and shoulder muscles, and just, in keeping with headache tension. And so I gave him, a regular massage. It was nothing too aggressive. It was nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't something that he had had a million times before at our spa. And like a long time later, like almost a year later, this guy came back in, and I happened to have him for another massage, and he tried to tell me that he didn't straight out tell me, but he hinted that he had had a stroke shortly after that spa visit, and that he was almost implying that I had something to do with that. Now, I don't feel that I did have anything to do with that, but I will also point out that this gentleman, a few years later, ended up being arrested and I believe found guilty of fraud. So just so you know, he was not on the up and up, and I don't really know what his end game was with that, but I did not appreciate that. A client is as sweet as pie to your face, but says awful things about you to other people when you're not around. Do any of these examples sound familiar? Sadly, abusive incidents like these really have taken place over the years, affecting several massage therapists I've actually known. And as I explained, sometimes to me too. I totally understand that sometimes the last people we take care of are ourselves, on occasion preferring to let things roll off our backs, keeping our heads down and taking the path of least resistance. But sometimes enough is enough. Just as a client is under no obligation to give a reason when terminating a service with you, you are under no obligation to get into specifics when you decide to terminate a service with a client. How you communicate regarding session termination with a client is up to you and should be tailored to fit each unique situation. If a client is verbally abusive, you may choose to inform them that you don't appreciate the language being used and/or that you're not the ideal massage therapist for them. If you are an employee, inform management about what took place ASAP so they can hear your side of the story first. If a client is physically abusive or is threatening physical abuse, get away from them and to a safe location ASAP, then contact management and/or the authorities. Remember, supplies and equipment can be replaced, but you are irreplaceable. So, I really like using, I really like communicating that I am not the ideal massage therapist for this person. You're probably not going to get into any sort of argument with the person. It's pretty much like a self-explanatory statement that doesn't really lend itself to extra embellishment, if you will. Because you do want to diffuse a situation, and choice of language has a lot to do with that, can really influence the outcome of a situation that could potentially be diffused or escalated, and we do not want to escalate an already hostile situation with any of these people, whether they are threatening physical violence or whether they're just being nasty, saying nasty things to you. All right, we have some questions here. I work at a resort spa and have had some very intoxicated hotel guests come in for massages. Sometimes they say inappropriate things. How should I handle this? I don't want to get in trouble. Thank you for your question. I have had intoxicated massage guests cross my path, thankfully not too frequently, but on occasion here at the resorts in Vegas. And it's not always obvious right from the beginning, but sometimes it is. I'll touch more on this a little bit later when I'm talking about more case studies, but if we can diffuse a situation or remove ourselves from a potentially harmful situation earlier rather than later, go with earlier. So if somebody comes in and you haven't even walked them to the treatment room yet, or they haven't gotten on the table yet, and they are visibly intoxicated, that would be the time to refuse the service and, deal with whatever conversation happens after that point. It's a lot easier to get somebody who's intoxicated out of your massage room when they still have their clothes on, or at the very least a robe, because I have seen it before where somebody will get on the table, and I don't know if sometimes it could be drinking, sometimes it could be pills, sometimes it could be a combination of the two. Maybe the stuff hasn't kicked in yet and then it hits them mid-massage. I've seen it happen where somebody is just so out of it that they can't even get up off the massage table on their own, and security has had to have been called and had to get them off the table and out of the spa. So if somebody's exhibiting signs of substance use that is troubling to you, have them refuse the service as soon as possible, preferably before they get on the table and before they get their clothes off. Okay, so that being said, so we've established when the best time to refuse the service is, and they say inappropriate things. That is not acceptable, and you should not have to put up with that. I am assuming that this is, a small minority of your clientele at the resort spa. I would hope so. And you don't want to get in trouble. You know what? I would really hope that management at the spa wouldn't want wasted people on their equipment. This didn't happen to me, but it happened to a coworker of mine, an esthetician. This gentleman came in for a facial, and he was so wasted. He threw up all over everything in her treatment room. I don't think spa management wants that to happen either. So, same kind of thing. You would refuse the service politely and professionally, just like everything we've been talking about. And you may want to say, clearly now is not a good time for you to receive massage. I'm going to walk you to the men's spa or the women's spa or up to the front. Then you want to communicate with management as soon as possible. Again, so they get your side of the story first. So if security does need to be called, security can come in and escort them out, or they can let the spa attendant know, hey, keep an eye on so-and-so. So that's how I would handle that. I really hope that management would have your back on this. And like I said, management does not want this client throwing up on the equipment. Management does not want this client throwing up on another guest. Management does not want this client passing out on the massage table where security has to be called and that treatment room is blocked off for an extra hour unexpectedly, so another client has to be, their schedule has to be altered because there's no rooms available because there's a passed out client in one and security's marching in. So I think I want to believe management would have your back there. But thank you for your question. Okay, another question. I once had a client grab at my ankle while he was prone on my table and his arms were hanging down at his sides. I was wearing boots, so he didn't grab much more than a handful of leather, but still, what would you do? Well, grabbing is clearly not what we're going for here, and it is disrespectful, and it's a fairly aggressive form of behavior. It's completely uncalled for, and I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Now, in a case like that, you have options. You could say something to this client if you wanted to, and of course it's going to depend on your rapport with the client. Is this somebody you see a lot? Is it a one-time client? What tone of communication seems like it would work best with this client? But you could even say something direct like, "Oh, did you just grab my ankle?" You could say that, and that might be enough to get them to not do it again. If this is somebody that doesn't catch the hint and they go for it again, at that point, I don't think I'd feel comfortable being in a room alone with this person. So at that point, second strike, I'd probably end the service. And I would let someone know ASAP. I'd probably leave the room waiting for them to come out and let somebody I worked with know ASAP, that this is a somewhat aggressive client in here and I don't feel safe being alone with them. And to not put them in a room alone with anybody else at the spa either. Or, it could be the kind of situation where they grab your, try to grab your ankle. I'm assuming that this isn't like an aggressive grab. I'm assuming it's almost like they nonchalant, oh, did I do that? I'm assuming that that's I'm assuming that's what it was, but I could be wrong. If it was like an aggressive grab, oh hell no, we're not staying in a room alone with that guy. But if it was just kind of like an oh no, like a plausible deniability thing, oh I didn't realize, you could always, unless there's a physical reason why he would be unable to do this, you could always then put his arms up at his sides on the table since they were hanging down before. So there are different ways to handle it. Personally, you know, in 12 years of experience as a massage therapist, I have found usually it just takes, you know, a little, I'm going to say a little nudge from me to get them to not do that anymore. And it usually is something like moving the hand up, as long as there's no reason not to, or, you know, or if needs be, like to say something like, oh, did you just grab my ankle? And that would probably be like the next notch up from moving the arm up to their sides. So I hope they answered that question. We're doing well on time. Okay. Yeah, that's what I would do. All right, so I have read all of the text that goes along with this video series, and all of this text can be found again at confidentmassage.com. You can download the PDF, and that's free to download, free to read, free to reference. You only follow the payment instructions at confidentmassage.com when you actually need a certificate from me. All right, so in closing, NCB-TMB's Standard 5 Rules and Boundaries is designed to protect us massage therapists and body workers just as much as it protects our clients. To sum it up, the simplest ways to embody professionalism in the realm of rules and boundaries are: practice awareness, to employ healthy communication skills, and to show respect for ourselves and others at all times. So I'm going to end this text-heavy section of the video series, and we're in our next video, in the next several videos, we're going to talk about some real life situations and maybe answer some more participant questions. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next video.